Stone remembers, long after the voices that commanded its shaping have gone silent, long after wind and rain have erased the records of kings, long after languages change and names are forgotten. Stone remains. It is the most stubborn of materials, the oldest witness to everything humans ever dared to build. Yet within the long memory of stone, there is one shape that refuses to fall, refuses to break, refuses to surrender. The pyramid, a form so stable that it has survived entire civilizations, a geometry that defies earthquakes, floods, armies, and time itself. When every other monument collapses and crumbles into dust, pyramids remain rising above their ruins, like the skeletons of ancient dreams. Imagine standing in the desert near the Great Pyramids of Giza. You see stone blocks, each one weighing more than a fully grown elephant. Millions of these blocks stacked together with precision so fine that a razor blade cannot slide between them. Their mass presses downward with a force almost impossible to describe in everyday experience. Yet the structure does not buckle. Instead, gravity itself becomes the architect. Every block pushes straight downward into a wider base below. The pyramid is a stable conversation between weight and ground, a conversation that always ends with the same truth. This shape will not fall easily. Other shapes are far more fragile. A tall, straight wall concentrates its weight along a thin vertical line. Earthquakes can shake it loose. Rain can undercut its foundation. The slightest shift can topple it. Towers lean and eventually collapse. Arches crack if a single stone is removed. Domes need tension rings and continual maintenance. But a pyramid has a wide foundation that supports a tapering summit. It distributes load evenly the way a mountain does. Engineers call this a natural load path. The downward pull of gravity flows smoothly through the body of the structure and spreads outward into the earth itself. There is no single weak point that can fail. A pyramid takes advantage of friction between stones. Every stone is squeezed tightly by the weight of those above. Each contact surface locks into all the others. If one block tries to slip outward, the ones around it resist. It is a system of mutual support. No piece stands alone. In this way, the pyramid resembles the societies that built them, a vast population contributing strength to a single towering idea. A building like a social contract carved into limestone. Even when nature is violent and unpredictable, pyramids endure. Earthquakes that have erased countless ancient temples have scarcely cracked the Great Pyramid at Giza. Wind that can grind rock into powder has barely smoothed their faces after more than 4,000 years. Sandstorms bury them but never break them. Rising floodwaters erode land, but the pyramid remains too massive to be carried away. The desert could swallow the rest of Egypt, and still those stone triangles would rise above the dunes, defiant against oblivion. It is not only Egypt that learned this secret. Across the world where early humans pushed their engineering to the limit, the same answer emerged. In West Africa, the Nubian kings built steep, pointed pyramids to guard their tombs. In Mesoamerica, the Maya and the Aztec shaped monumental stepped pyramids as platforms for ceremony and divine presence. On the Chinese plains, great earthen pyramid mounds protected the remains of emperors. Even in ancient Europe and the Near East, simple pyramid-like cairns and burial mounds rose from the ground. These cultures had no ships crossing oceans to share ideas, no telecommunication to spread architectural plans, yet they discovered the same durable geometry. The pyramid is the most universal large-scale monument humans have ever built. Its stability can be traced directly to how forces travel through its shape. Imagine a slope made of stone. At the bottom, the stones experience the greatest pressure. They anchor the structure and keep the top in place. Higher up, the pressure lessens, allowing construction to rise taller without requiring impossibly strong materials. It is the same logic that gives mountains their profile. Nature has been refining this form for hundreds of millions of years. Humans simply learned to imitate the earth. But to say that the pyramid is only practical would be to miss the deeper truth. Practicality explains why pyramids survive. It does not explain why people desired them so intensely, why invest entire nations' worth of labor, why shape landscapes and move mountains of stone, why aim their peaks toward the heavens. The answer lies partly in the way human minds interpret shapes. A point reaching upward inspires imagination. It suggests a journey beyond, a connection between earth and sky. A pyramid is not just a strong structure, it is a symbol of ascent. Look again at the Great Pyramid. It is not only a tomb, it is a mountain-sized idea. The ancient Egyptians believed that the first moment of creation began with a sacred mound rising out of the waters of chaos. They called this the primordial hill, a symbol of rebirth. The pyramid repeats that moment in permanent stone. Every sunrise makes its peak glow like the first light of the world, a physical reminder that life and order can rise again from darkness. The stability of the structure turns into the stability of a belief that power and life can last forever. Civilizations chose pyramids because they resist destruction better than any other form humans know how to build with stone. When an entire culture feared the erasure of their achievements, the pyramid promised endurance. When rulers feared death, pyramids promised a monument that would speak for them long after their flesh turned to dust. The shape became a declaration of permanence. Even if the living forgot their stories, the stones would continue their testimony. What we call ancient was once cutting-edge engineering, and the pyramid was the most advanced tool for immortality. It was engineered to defeat time. But time alone is not the only enemy. There are more subtle forces that dissolve history. Wind wears away memory. Human conflict rewrites the landscape. Rivers change course. Empires fall. Stories vanish. Yet the pyramid remains. Overwhelming attempts to erase it. Its shape makes it the last survivor in the ruins of a civilization. As we observe these structures today, rising through heat shimmer and starlight, we are seeing the victory of geometry over entropy. The pyramid is strength given form, simplicity made eternal, a design so effective that even the builders could not fully comprehend how long it would last. They did not live in centuries and millennia. They lived in daily triumphs and fears. Still, their monuments became the rulers of deep time. And so, we arrive at the heart of this investigation. The pyramid survived because it is the optimal compromise between ambition and material limitation. Humans wanted to touch the sky. Stone wanted to remain grounded. The pyramid is where those desires meet. That is why, even when erosion bruises its surface, or when earthquakes shake its foundation, the geometry remains victorious. If the outer layers fall away, the inner core keeps its form. It is like a skeleton that refuses to collapse. Now consider a provocative question. Did ancient builders choose this shape because they understood its physics? Or did the shape choose them because it emerged naturally from trial and error until nothing else could compare? Perhaps both answers are true. Early attempts at monumental architecture that leaned or toppled would be forgotten, buried under their own failure. What survived was the solution, the method that worked, the structure that made itself unforgettable. The pyramid is not just stronger than stone, it is the hidden logic inside stone made visible, a shape that unites the weight of earth with the upward reach of human imagination. And once a culture discovers its power, the idea becomes impossible to resist. A king or a priest or a community sees a pyramid rising in the distance and thinks, this is what it means to last. The closer we look at the pyramid and its strength, the more we discover that its resilience is not a coincidence. Every angle, every layer, every block, all follow a logic that seems almost instinctive, as though humans were guided by the same wisdom that shapes mountains. Imagine lifting a single stone block up a ramp. It is exhausting. Multiply that by several million, and you can feel the unimaginable strain placed upon workers, animals, and tools. Yet the weight of all those stones, as intimidating as it is, becomes a source of security once they are placed into the pyramid structure. Weight becomes protection. Gravity becomes a shield. The mass that once threatened to crush workers becomes the very reason the monument endures. Even before mathematics grew into a formal science, builders observed that piles of earth or stone naturally settle into a triangular profile. If you pour sand onto the ground, it does not form a wall or a perfect cube. It slopes upward into a rough pyramid. That is the shape nature prefers for stability. Humans noticed. They built burial mounds long before they mastered precision masonry. Those mounds eventually evolved into stepped platforms, then into angled surfaces. Over centuries, through experimentation and evolution of technique, those natural forms hardened into geometry. Eventually, they became the smooth-sided wonders that still rise above deserts and jungles today. When engineers today analyze the Great Pyramid, they find it astonishingly resistant to the stresses that doom most buildings. Imagine an earthquake shaking the ground beneath it. A tower would sway, twist, and break. Walls would separate along joints. Vaults would crack, but the pyramid barely moves. Vibrations run through the stones like ripples through a mountain. The shape channels motion into the earth. The structure acts almost as a solid, absorbing and redistributing forces so effectively that instability never has a chance to grow. In engineering terms, a pyramid has a very low center of gravity compared to its height. This means that even if the ground shifts beneath one side, the entire mass continues to push downward vertically rather than tipping. For an ancient society relying on human muscle, primitive copper tools, and the natural environment, this was an incredible advantage. They could build unimaginably tall structures without fear that one mistake would send the entire monument crashing down. The most impressive demonstration of this strength lies in the story of the Great Pyramid's core. Throughout thousands of years, outer limestone casing stones have been removed for later construction in medieval Cairo. Weather and looting altered the smooth faces that once caught the sun with the brilliance of polished white stone. Yet beneath those missing layers stands a jagged core of blocks, uneven, exposed, battered, but still perfectly pyramidal. Even stripped of its skin, the body of the pyramid refuses to yield its form. This is geometry carved into the planet. Ancient workers did not think in terms of calculations written on papyrus. They learned through practice, through survival, through necessity. Structures that failed were abandoned and forgotten. Structures that succeeded became the templates for future generations. The pyramid is what remains after trial and destruction. It is the memory of victory over materials, a success story so compelling that entire civilizations built their identity around its silhouette. But strength alone cannot explain its widespread appeal. People also respond to the way a pyramid interacts with light. At sunrise, each face brightens in sequence. At noon, it becomes a shimmering beacon. At sunset, the shadow of the structure stretches across the sands like a pointer marking time itself. In the night, the pointed tip aims directly into the dark sky, reminding the living that there is something above them worth striving toward. The pyramid is a spiritual statement disguised as engineering, and that suggests something deeper. Perhaps the builders did not simply want to defy gravity. Perhaps they wanted to express a fundamental belief that existence is not flat, that life ascends, that death leads upward, that power rises from many at the base toward a single divine presence at the top. The physical strength of the pyramid reinforces the power of the idea. Many people support the one. The one reaches the heavens. The base is the world of the living. The summit is eternity. Every civilization that built pyramids believed in something above human reach. A god, a divine mountain, a cosmic order. The pyramid was their bridge. A structure that cannot fall becomes a promise that faith cannot fail. Kings and priests placed themselves at the apex because they saw themselves as the ones destined to touch the eternal. Consider the psychological power of such a monument. When a ruler commands a pyramid to be built, the sheer labor involved transforms not just the landscape but the entire society. Thousands of workers commit their strength and lives to the construction. Villages become cities. Roads are built. Administrations develop to support the project. The act of building the pyramid becomes a structure around which the civilization organizes itself. The pyramid builds the nation as much as the nation builds the pyramid. Even when a civilization collapses, the pyramid remains to tell the story. These structures survive as warnings and as invitations. They challenge future generations to question how they were formed and why they endure. They spark curiosity, legend, and scientific investigation. They become puzzles that keep memory alive even after writing and language have disappeared. If other forms had been used for these monumental ambitions, perhaps they would not have survived long enough to be admired. Vaulted temples have collapsed into skeletons of broken arches. Towers that once soared have crumbled into anonymous heaps. But pyramids still rise with their original silhouette intact. They are the closest thing humans have built to immortality. The more we inspect their shapes, the more we understand that even the smallest details contribute to stability. The angle of inclination is shallow enough to maintain friction between stones, but steep enough to create height that inspires awe. The foundation is cut into bedrock, so the structure rests not on shifting sand, but on the solid bones of the earth. Internal tunnels and chambers are arranged to avoid concentrating stress. Above the king's chamber in the Great Pyramid, multiple granite slabs form a series of relieving spaces that deflect the crushing weight away from the sacred room. These choices show not only brute force labor, but intelligent design guided by observation and experience. It is tempting to think that such durability makes pyramids cold and soulless. But strength is not the absence of meaning, it is the foundation upon which meaning can be placed without fear of it being lost. Strength is the carrier of memory, and the pyramid is the greatest memory carrier ever built. Now that we have seen how the pyramid conquers the physical challenges of this planet, we must ask a greater question. Why did humans see this shape as something worthy of so much dedication? Why did they invest entire lifetimes into a form that does not simply survive, but also communicates? Where did this desire to turn mountains into messages originate? To find the answer, we must step into the minds of those who saw nature not as scenery, but as a sacred text written in stone. To understand why pyramids became humanity's most enduring monuments, we must place ourselves in the world before steel and engines, before electricity, before skyscrapers. The land itself was the greatest teacher. Mountains rose without tools or rulers. They seemed eternal. They pierced the sky where the gods were believed to dwell. When storms gathered around their peaks and lightning touched their crowns, ancient people witnessed a direct link between earth and the heavens. Mountains became temples created by nature, and humans, forever curious and ambitious, learned from that colossal architecture. The earliest builders did not set out to mimic nature. They set out to honor it. Burial mounds shaped like hills protected the dead, just as mountains sheltered snow and clouds. Over time, those mounds were cut into terraces, edges made sharper by human intention. Step pyramids like those at Saqqara in Egypt or in the sacred cities of Mesoamerica look like stairs climbing toward the sky. Their shape invites the imagination to travel upward. Each level is a stage of ascent, each terrace a symbolic step from the world of humans to the world of gods. As craftsmanship improved, those stepped layers were refined into smooth, angled surfaces. The Great Pyramid at Giza, completed more than 40 centuries ago, represents the final evolution of that idea. Instead of a climb, the shape became a ray of light frozen in stone. The ancient Egyptians believed the sun was a divine being whose rays carried life and power. A pyramid is the physical form of those rays. It is the light of the sun captured and solidified. Its sides slope like beams shining to the ground. When the sun rises and its first glow touches the pinnacle, the entire structure becomes a symbol of resurrection. The very strength of the pyramid reinforces this spiritual role. A shape that refuses to fall becomes a metaphor for immortality. For a pharaoh who wanted to rule forever, nothing was more important than a monument that would stand until the end of time. Imagine the fear of being forgotten, the terror of knowing that even the greatest ruler will eventually be dust. The pyramid answered that fear with confidence. Place your body within me, and I will stand as your memory. I will speak your name long after your people vanish. A ruler who builds a pyramid declares that their life and authority reach beyond death. The pyramid becomes a declaration carved into the horizon. That is why the peaks of Giza rise exactly where they do. Positioned above the floodplain, they dominate the Nile Valley. Travelers approaching from any direction see those immense forms long before they see the city. Even today, when modern buildings crowd the skyline, the pyramids still command attention. They are not simply constructions, they are statements. The very act of building them shaped the identity of those who labored. Many workers in Egypt were not slaves but farmers who joined construction during the season when the Nile flooded their fields. Their strength was redirected from growing crops to raising stone. They ate, they slept, they trained, they lived in communities formed by the project. The pyramid united them. It gave them a purpose that stretched far beyond their individual lives. They contributed not just to a building, but to the legacy of their civilization. When we consider all this, the pyramid becomes more than a clever design. It becomes a story that a people told about themselves. We are strong enough to move mountains. We are wise enough to shape eternity. We are important enough that the gods themselves will recognize our work. This story radiates from every block. That sense of meaning does something powerful. When a structure represents divine order, not even kings can question it. The pyramid defines what is right. It defines who rules. It defines the relationship between heaven and earth. No law or army can compete with a monument that looks like creation itself. The pyramid was a throne for gods and a spine for nations. Even in places far from Egypt, the urge to shape stone into a cosmic mountain took hold. The Maya built pyramids that served as both tombs and stages for ritual drama. Entire crowds would gather as priests performed ceremonies and rulers demonstrated authority from the summit. These structures were not just spiritual, they were social machines. They transformed gatherings into collective experiences. They synchronized belief and obedience. In China, the great earthen pyramids of Xi'an hide imperial tombs beneath silent hills. Their sloping forms blend into the landscape as if the mountains themselves had accepted the dead into their embrace. Whether visible from afar like those in Egypt or disguised among fields like those in China, the pyramid always sends the same message. The one who rests within is closer to heaven. Authority does not die, it only ascends. Across cultures, the same truth emerges. People chose the pyramid not only because it endures, but because it elevates. It lifts the meaning of life above the ordinary. The shape points upward to remind us that existence is layered. Beneath the ground is the realm of ancestors. On the surface is the world of the living. Above is the domain of gods and stars. A pyramid expresses all these realms in a single form. Its stability gives weight to its message. A fragile symbol is a weak symbol. A fallen monument sends a message of failure. But a pyramid stands like an unbreakable sentence that cannot be erased. Generations pass, languages change, beliefs evolve, yet the pyramids keep their silent declaration. We were here. We dared to reach upward. Even today, as modern scientists measure stress lines and analyze geology, there is still something mysterious in that climb of stone. We know the pyramid is stable. We know its strength follows the laws of physics. But humans are not guided by physics alone. We are guided by awe, by fear, by hope, by longing. The pyramid satisfies these ancient feelings. It tells us that humans can create something that outlasts them. It shows that vision can be carved into the bedrock of the world. And this is only the beginning. The pyramid, as a strong shape, explains how it survived. The pyramid, as a sacred mountain, explains why it was wanted. The next truth is even more surprising. Those massive structures did not only face outward to impress the living and connect with the gods, they also faced upward with astonishing precision. They were aligned to the path of stars. They were built to participate in the movements of the sky itself. To continue our investigation into the hidden purpose of the pyramid shape, we must now leave the solid ground of architecture and climb into the realm of astronomy. We must discover how ancient builders used geometry to bind their creations to the cosmic clock that governs the heavens. Before humans carved pyramids out of solid stone, mountains were already standing as the earliest temples of the world. They rose without labor and without tools. They eclipsed everything around them. When the first ancestors looked up and saw snow-covered summits hidden by clouds and storms, they imagined those lofty places as homes of beings greater than themselves. A mountain touches the sky. It commands both fear and reverence. So it is no surprise that long before geometry became a science, mountains shaped the earliest ideas of divinity. Consider a person standing in a prehistoric valley. The sun sinks behind a distant peak, and shadows stretch across the earth like great hands. Thunder rolls as lightning strikes the highest point. Rain pours from the heavens above that sacred summit. Life-giving water seems to descend directly from the mountain of the sky. To ancient minds, this was not coincidence. It was communication. Mountains were cosmic channels through which the powers of the heavens flowed down to humanity. They controlled weather, they marked directions, they stood in silent authority over every life below. When humans first tried to contact the divine, they climbed. Every step upward was a step toward revelation. High ground became holy ground. Peaks became pillars connecting the earthly to the celestial. The pattern appears everywhere. The Greek gods lived atop Olympus. In the Near East, the Sumerians believed that the gods dwelled above a great cosmic mountain. In the Andes Mountains were watched as givers of water and guardians of crops. Wherever mountains ruled the skyline, they shaped religion. But not every land possessed towering peaks. Along the Nile Valley, the horizon was wide and flat. There were no sacred summits to climb, yet the belief remained that creation began with a mound rising out of chaos. Egyptian sages told the story of a time before time when endless dark waters covered everything. Then a single mound surged upward, created by the first light of existence. They called this mound the Ben. It was the earliest land, the seed of the world. From that sacred point, life began and gods emerged. When the Egyptians built pyramids, they were not simply constructing tombs, they were recreating the first moment when order conquered the waters of nothingness. Each pyramid is a rebirth of that cosmic mound. By placing a king inside such a structure, they symbolically returned him to the birthplace of creation so that he could rise again as a divine being. The pyramid was less a grave and more a launching place into eternal life. Imagine the sun rising over the desert. Its first rays touch the peak of the pyramid, causing it to glow like a spark igniting the day. The ancient Egyptians believed that the sun god arrived each morning through a journey across the heavens. The bright tip of the pyramid was a beacon that welcomed him. It was a place where light was seen first. In their eyes, the pyramid was not just shaped like a ray, it actively captured sunlight and delivered it to the ground. The entire structure became a frozen symbol of the sun god descent to earth. Across the ocean, the same symbolic logic grew independently. In Mesoamerica, the Maya built pyramids that lifted their temples high above cities and jungles. Priests climbed those steep stairs carrying offerings to the summit. From that height, they were closer to celestial power. Below them, crowds filled the plazas witnessing rituals that connected the living with the gods. The pyramid was a stage rising into the heavens while also anchoring ceremonies to the earth. It became the center of public life and spiritual imagination. In these great platforms, the Maya preserved a link between rulers and cosmic beings. A king who climbed to the top was not simply ascending stone stairs. He was reenacting the mythic journey of ancestors who rose from the underworld through sacred mountains into the daylight realm. Rituals performed at the summit made that climb real again. The pyramid was a memory machine recording the steps of creation. Even in cultures without stone construction, the pyramid shape emerged from spiritual necessity. In China, great burial mounds rose like earthen pyramids above the tombs of emperors. Their sloping forms echo the surrounding hills, as though the land itself rose up to protect the ancient rulers. These mounds served as bridges between the living world and the ancestral realm. The pyramid became a shelter for the dead to continue guiding the living. Across continents and eras, the same belief endured. To rise upward was to approach the divine. The pyramid turned that ascent into architecture. It became a spiritual technology, a tool to move a soul from the mortal world into the celestial domain. The higher one reached, the closer one came to the eternal powers in the sky. A pyramid gave that journey form. It allowed people to climb not only with their feet, but with their faith. Even the steep sides of these structures speak a symbolic language. Their incline makes the climb difficult because it mirrors the challenge of spiritual elevation. Reaching the summit requires effort and transformation. Those who ascend must earn the view from above. The pyramid teaches that enlightenment is never easy. It requires devotion, discipline, and sacrifice. The ancient builders did not separate architecture from religion. Every detail served both function and meaning. The base represents the earthly realm. It is wide, solid, and anchored to the world of humans. Each layer above lifts the structure toward the heavens. The geometry of ascension is embedded in the very shape. It is a mountain made from belief. And unlike natural mountains, which are scattered randomly across the landscape, pyramids can be placed exactly where symbolic alignment demands. They can form sacred patterns on the ground, reflecting constellations in the sky. They can create ordered landscapes that mirror the ordered universe. The pyramid also served as a throne for gods. At its summit, ceremonies elevated leaders to a position where they stood between heaven and earth. Standing at that height, a priest or ruler did not just represent the people, they represented the cosmic order itself. The pyramid granted them the authority of the divine, authority that could be seen from every direction by all who lived in its shadow. Ancient people believed that cosmic forces were not abstract. They were physical. They shaped the world through visible signs in the sky. The movement of stars marked seasons. The path of the sun determined the cycle of life. The appearance of certain constellations foretold harvests and warned of disasters. By building pyramids, ancient societies tried to anchor these celestial powers to the ground. They invited the heavens to come closer. They created permanent altars beneath the path of stars. And this is where the story of pyramids becomes even more astonishing. Many of these structures do not simply point upward generally. They point precisely. Their corners and sides align with the directions of the earth. Their peaks mark the journey of the sun and stars. They are giant instruments of cosmic observation hidden within mountains of stone. The spiritual idea of creating a mountain for the gods evolved into scientific architecture. A pyramid is not only a sacred form, it is also a map of the universe frozen in place. The next step in our investigation leads us to the night sky, where ancient builders discovered a way to merge religion with observation. By shaping their monuments to match the heavens, they ensured that their beliefs would remain in harmony with the long cycles of the cosmos. The relationship between pyramids and the sky was never accidental. When the first civilizations looked upward at night, they saw a map of stories and gods drawn among the stars. The sky was a book that could not be erased. It repeated itself with perfect reliability. Sunrises and sunsets guided daily life. The constellations rotated through the seasons, marking planting and harvest. Eclipses startled and warned. The heavens were the greatest clock humans had ever known, yet also the greatest mystery. To understand the sky was to understand divine intention. Imagine standing beside the Great Pyramid long ago. The desert night is cold and silent. Above you, the Milky Way stretches like a river of light. The air is so clear that stars seem close enough to touch. Here, the ancient Egyptians observed something remarkable. The North Star of that time, Thuban, in the constellation of Draco, remained nearly still while all other stars rotated around it. This fixed point became a symbol of permanence, a perfect reference for alignment. The sides of the pyramid were oriented with astonishing precision to the four cardinal directions: true north, true south, true east, and true west. Not approximate, exact. A demonstration of knowledge that seems unbelievable without modern instruments. Some scholars believe the builders used a simple but clever technique. On a clear night, two observing rods could be aligned with the path of a star as it moved across the sky. When that star crossed its highest point, the direction of true north could be established. Over repeated observations, the accuracy sharpened. Instead of a guess, they achieved near perfection. This proves that the ancient Egyptians were not only skilled laborers but skilled astronomers. The alignment of pyramids tells us something profound. These monuments were connected not just to Earth but to the cosmos. They were built to be part of the celestial order. Just as the sun rises and sets in a predictable arc, the pyramid remains eternally facing the correct directions. It is a fixed participant in the dance of the heavens. There is more. Many pyramids incorporate angles that reflect important solar patterns. The slope of the Great Pyramid is close to the angle at which sunlight descends at certain times of year. When the sun reaches specific positions, the faces of the monument divide light and shadow in perfect harmony. On the solstices and equinoxes, these shadows move with geometric precision, creating displays that reaffirm the link between the pyramid and the solar cycle. The design is a calendar written in stone. In Mesoamerica, similar astronomical intelligence shaped the pyramid of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza. When the sun reaches the right position during the spring equinox, the shadow cast by the stepped structure forms the body of a serpent that appears to slither down the pyramid to meet a carved snake head at the base. The pyramid becomes not just a building, but a performance. The sun itself animates the sacred symbol. This event was no coincidence. It required careful observation of the sky and exact placement of the structure. The builders were creating architecture that moved with time. Observing the sky was a language understood by the elite who governed ancient societies. To predict the solstice was to predict the flooding of the Nile. To track the stars was to track the seasons of survival. Astronomical knowledge was therefore political power. It enabled leaders to appear connected to the gods, controlling the fate of crops and the success of armies. The pyramid served as the physical seat of that authority. It said to the people, "Look, our rulers know the path of the sun and the patterns of the stars. They command both earth and heaven." Some believe that certain shafts within the Great Pyramid of Giza were aimed toward particular stars. One small passage points toward the northern sky where the imperishable stars dwell. These are stars that never set. They circle the north and remain eternal. Egyptians associated these stars with immortality and believed that the soul of the king would join them. Another shaft may align with the star Sirius, associated with the goddess Isis, who played a key role in the resurrection myth of Osiris. These alignments infused the internal structure with cosmic purpose. The pyramid was not only a monument visible to all, it was also a hidden machine guiding the soul of the deceased pharaoh into the eternal heavens. Even the placement of multiple pyramids followed star patterns. The three main pyramids at Giza are arranged in a pattern that some interpret as echoing the three stars of Orion Belt. Whether intentional or symbolic evolution through ritual and tradition, the correlation suggests that the pyramids mapped heaven onto earth. The Egyptians worshipped Osiris as a constellation of Orion representing a king who died and rose again. Placing the pharaoh tomb under that heavenly pattern was a powerful message. The king would rise just as Osiris rose. The pyramid therefore operates on two worlds, one that we walk upon and one that we behold above. It is both a tomb and a telescope, a grave and a calendar, a mountain of stone and a diagram of the sky. Every ancient person living under its shadow would feel that connection. When the sun climbed toward its peak, the pyramid peak reached toward the sun. When the stars wheeled overhead, the pyramid remained steadfast, marking directions that never waver. It became a bridge between the predictable cycles of astronomy and the unpredictable cycles of human life. By embodying those celestial rhythms, the pyramid reassured entire civilizations that they too were part of a divine order. As long as the pyramid stood aligned to the stars, the world remained in balance. The pharaoh ruled with cosmic legitimacy. The harvest came in season. The afterlife had a reliable path. The sky was orderly, and so too was the kingdom. This celestial interest was not unique to Egypt. In the Andean world, high-altitude pyramids aligned with the rising of significant stars that guided planting and ceremony. In China, burial pyramids were arranged according to the directions marking the emperor relationship to the cosmos. Everywhere, people used architecture to inscribe cosmic permanence into the land. The pyramid thus became a physical prayer directed at the night sky, a message carved into earth and aimed upward, a request for continuity, for protection, for eternal life. Even today, modern astronomers and engineers marvel at how ancient builders achieved such accuracy, without metal tools, without electric lights, without lasers or satellites for surveying. Their knowledge was earned through observation and patience, night after night, year after year. They read the heavens until the patterns revealed themselves. The pyramids proved that early people understood the world more deeply than we once assumed. They watched the sky not for curiosity alone, but for survival and meaning. They built structures that would remain loyal to those celestial patterns long after they were gone. They ensured that even when their names and languages faded, the alignment to the cosmos would endure. Now that we have explored how pyramids reflect the spiritual mountain and the cosmic map, we must ask how these beliefs guided the purpose of the internal spaces. For pyramids were not simply monuments on the outside, they were also journeys within. Dark passages, chambers, and hidden voids tell us that the pyramid was built not just to look upward, but to move inward, to guide a soul through transformation after death. When we step back from the overwhelming size of pyramids and begin to examine their angles, alignments, and proportions, we discover something astonishing. These structures are not simply large piles of stone arranged for visual power. They are precise instruments that connect human intention to the deepest rhythms of the cosmos. Their geometry is a language that speaks to the stars. In ancient Egypt, the builders of pyramids did not choose directions casually. They oriented their monuments with a level of accuracy that challenges even modern construction. True north, true south, true east, and true west were determined with such care that the error is smaller than a single degree, much smaller than the width of a finger when held up against the horizon. They accomplished this without telescopes or compasses. Instead, they watched the night sky with complete devotion. Night after night, they tracked the movement of the stars which appear to circle around a fixed point near the north. In the time of the pyramids, that point was close to the star Thuban in the constellation of Draco. By observing when a star reached its highest position in the sky, they marked true north. Over years of careful records, they corrected their findings until the entire structure could be built around that perfect orientation. This alignment was not symbolic alone, it was functional. The Egyptians believed the pharaoh would join the deathless stars that never dipped below the horizon. These stars formed a circle around the north point and were called the imperishable stars. They represented immortality, everlasting order, and the idea that a ruler power would continue forever. By pointing their pyramids toward these eternal lights, the Egyptians created a direct pathway for the king soul. The architecture became a map to the heavens. The slopes of the pyramids tell a similar story. They are not random. The Great Pyramid has an angle close to 51 degrees. If one could stand on its original polished casing stones when they were new, the smooth surfaces would have glowed like a giant beacon catching the sunlight and reflecting it into the desert. That angle of incline may be connected to how sunlight falls at certain moments of the year. Some researchers believe it reflects the relationship between the height and the base in a way that encodes important mathematical discoveries, including a ratio that later became central to geometry. Whether or not the builders intended mathematical symbolism, the fact remains that their design harmonized perfectly with the movement of light. This harmony becomes even more striking when we consider the internal passages. In the Great Pyramid, narrow shafts branch off from chambers deep inside the structure. These shafts do not point toward entrances or outward openings. They aim toward specific stars. One points to the region of the sky associated with Orion, where the god Osiris resides. Another toward the star Sirius, which was linked to the goddess Isis. Their myth told that Isis restored Osiris to life. By pointing the king toward these celestial beings, the architecture placed his soul within the cycle of death and rebirth that ruled the universe. The stone became a prayer that never stopped speaking. Ancient engineers did not speak of science the way we do today. They spoke the language of religion and ritual. But within that sacred language, we can see the foundations of astronomy and geometry. The pyramid form allowed them to stabilize gigantic weights while preserving exact alignments. These alignments transformed the structure into a marker of cosmic cycles. During solstices and equinoxes, the shadows cast by pyramids reveal the changing position of the sun with remarkable precision. The structure becomes a calendar larger than any temple wall. It becomes a tool that connects agricultural seasons to celestial cycles. Life and survival depend on knowing when crops must be planted and harvested. The pyramid ensured that the heavens would remain readable. Even the spacing of pyramids across the plateau at Giza appears to mimic the stars above. The three largest pyramids form a pattern that resembles the three stars of Orion Belt. This constellation was central to the Egyptian belief in the afterlife because it was connected to Osiris, the Lord of Resurrection. By placing the pharaoh tombs within a reflection of the stars, the Egyptians brought the cosmic order down to earth. The monuments became embodiments of the sky. When night fell upon ancient Egypt, the stars appeared sharp and brilliant above the desert. The pyramids stood like gigantic silhouettes framing the heavens. Imagine priests watching the stars from high observation platforms. They would see the slow turning of the constellations and mark the timing of ceremonies by how those lights appeared against the geometry of the pyramid itself. The structure was a bridge between observation and belief. It turned the sky into a partner in ritual. This cosmic relationship is not unique to Egypt. In Mesoamerica, the pyramid of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza was built so that during the spring equinox, sunlight creates the illusion of a serpent sliding down the staircase. The Maya believed that the feathered serpent god visited the world during this moment. The pyramid turned that myth into a visible reality. For the people watching, the god truly descended. Architecture became divine action. In the Andes, the Inca aligned their sacred structures with the rising and setting of significant stars. In China, imperial tombs were laid out according to the directions of the earth and sky, which represented the emperor cosmic mandate. Everywhere, the pyramid expressed a certainty that human life is part of something incomprehensibly vast. The upward-pointing form symbolizes the connection between dust and stars. The simplicity of the pyramid form hides the sophistication of its purpose. It is not merely a sturdy shape. It is geometry deployed as a sacred mathematics. It is a monument that guarantees its meaning will persist because the stars it points to endure longer than any kingdom. Kingdoms may rise and crumble, languages may vanish, but as long as the heavens maintain their patterns, the pyramid continues to fulfill its function. There is a profound elegance in this vision. Human hands arrange stone blocks in perfect order so that a human soul could ascend to the eternal order above. The pyramid is the union of aspiration and understanding. It is a declaration that humanity belongs to the cosmos, not merely to the earth. Its geometry tells the story of how ancient people found certainty in a universe that appears chaotic, but is guided by cycles and laws older than human existence. The more we uncover about pyramids, the more we see that every angle was considered, every measurement chosen to reinforce a belief that life does not end where flesh ends. The geometry served not only physics, but faith. It allowed rulers to present themselves as masters of both realms. Yet geometry and astronomy are not the final answers to the pyramid purpose. Inside these monumental forms is a spiritual engine that operates in secret. The internal layout reveals a journey not outward toward the horizon, but inward toward a new state of being. If the outer shape connects to the cosmos, the inner passage connects to eternity. The pyramid exterior connects humankind to the sky through angles and alignments that endure for thousands of years. But when we pass through the entrance and descend into the cool, dark interior, we confront an entirely different purpose. Here, the environment changes. Light disappears. The sounds of the outside world vanish. The air grows thick and ancient. We enter a realm designed for the spirit rather than the senses. The geometry that seems so clear and open above ground becomes mysterious and inward below. This contrast is not accidental. It reveals the dual nature of pyramids. One face turned toward the heavens, another turned toward the hidden journey of the soul. The inside of a pyramid is never as grand as the outside might suggest. Instead of vast open halls, we find narrow passages, steep climbs, and chambers that feel secret and protected. The unfinished stone walls tell us that these spaces were not created for the living to admire. They were created for the transformation of the dead. The pharaoh or ruler placed within them was believed to begin a journey from the confines of mortality to the boundless realm of the stars. Inside the Great Pyramid at Giza, the king chamber sits at the very heart of the structure. Surrounding it are granite blocks layered above one another to distribute weight. Engineers today still marvel at this system because millions of tons of stone press down from above. Yet the chamber has remained intact for more than 40 centuries. The builders knew exactly how to manage the invisible forces that could crush their creation. They shaped corridors carefully, allowing them to change slope in ways that channel the mass of the structure outward instead of downward. Everything inside the pyramid is a negotiation with gravity. The intention is to keep the king safe and sealed for eternity. There is something deeply symbolic in this hidden protection. The surrounding stone becomes a fortress that safeguards the most precious element of the civilization, the body of its divine ruler. It is not enough for the monument to stand strong on the outside. Its interior must also keep watch. The pyramid is a guardian of destiny. In every wall and passage we find a message. Life continues beyond death, but only if the soul follows the correct path. The journey through the pyramid mirrors ancient beliefs about the afterlife. The descent into darkness symbolizes the passage into the unknown. The climb upward through larger chambers symbolizes rebirth. Each turn resembles the changing phases of existence that the Egyptians believed a spirit must pass through. The architecture is therefore more than functional. It is ritual enacted through stone. The small shafts aimed towards certain stars serve as spiritual guidance. Through them, the soul exits the darkness and enters the cosmos. One shaft leads toward the northern imperishable stars, keeping the pharaoh among the eternal lights. Another toward the star Sirius, associated with the goddess Isis, who restored life to Osiris. These alignments transform the pyramid into a cosmic vessel. The soul does not wander, it has a destination. The architecture provides both protection and direction. This dual purpose shows the brilliance of ancient thinking. A pyramid is both a monument visible to all and a hidden sanctuary meant only for the king and his gods. The smooth outer faces reach upward, proclaiming power to the living. The interior passages move inward, preparing transformation for the dead. The entire structure is a bridge between two realms, the world of sunlight and the world of eternal night. Other civilizations echoed this hidden journey in their own ways. The Maya placed sacred tombs deep within pyramids that were later expanded upon. Each new layer grew outward as rulers came and went. The earlier tombs remained at the center like seeds from which the kingdom grew. The living climbed to the top of the pyramid to speak to the gods, while the dead rulers remained deep within, acting as guardians of spiritual order. The structure of Maya pyramids therefore united past, present, and future. Authority did not end with death. It continued through the stones. In China, the pyramid-shaped imperial mounds were spacious enough to contain treasures, models of palaces, and entire underground cities. These tombs expressed a belief that the emperor would continue ruling in the afterlife. The pyramid mound protected that eternal realm. It also expressed the stability of imperial power that did not disappear even when mortal rulers died. At the surface, the mound preserved the form of sacred mountains associated with heaven. Underground, it preserved the structure of the empire, a perfect mirror between earthly authority and divine order. We see that the pyramid is not only a connection between earth and sky, it is also a connection between life and death. It embodies continuity. A ruler does not leave the people behind. He remains hidden within the structure that continues to dominate the landscape. His presence reinforces the legitimacy of those who follow. The pyramid becomes a foundation not only of stone but of political identity. Inside these pyramids, eternal silence prevails. Yet that silence is full of purpose. It holds the weight of belief pressed into darkness. It holds hope that death is not the end but a required step toward a higher existence. In the mind of the ancient believer, every chamber, every stone block, and every alignment work together to ensure a successful transition. The pyramid became a guarantee of immortality. This faith may feel distant to us now, but the architecture still conveys that message. Standing before the Great Pyramid even today, we can sense the immense authority it projects. Even without priests chanting or pharaohs ruling, the structure preserves its meaning. The stones communicate a vision of humanity that refuses to accept oblivion. They proclaim that existence reaches beyond the brief flicker of life. As we study the pyramids as cosmic machines and spiritual vessels, we uncover an even more intriguing truth. Their geometry is exact. Their alignment follows celestial order. Their structure withstands the ages. Such achievements demand coordination resources and knowledge controlled by those in power. This raises a question that guides our next step. What role did pyramids play in shaping the societies that built them? Who benefited from their construction? And how did this monumental shape become the ultimate symbol of political control? The pyramid stands tall not only because of the precision of its stones, but also because of the power that placed those stones there. Every worker lifting a block, every planner measuring angles, every overseer shouting commands was part of a vast orchestration that required a strong and organized society. A project of such magnitude could not arise from a scattered or uncertain people. It demanded unity, leadership, and systems capable of sustaining thousands of laborers through years of effort. The pyramid therefore reflects not only the aspirations of its rulers, but also the very structure of the state. Imagine a pharaoh who wants to ensure that his name will never be forgotten. He commands the building of a pyramid taller and grander than any before. Instantly, farms must supply food for the workers. Stone quarries must provide giant blocks. Engineers must plan safe ramps and paths. And entire communities must shift their daily lives to support the monumental task. What begins as a royal idea becomes the foundation of an entire economy. The pyramid project employs craftsmen who cut stone with precision, builders who set each block in place, laborers who transport materials over long distances, and administrators who record and distribute resources. It becomes the central focus of national identity. This effort changes the society forever. The skills learned in building pyramids do not vanish when the structure is complete. They spread through the nation. Roads built for hauling stone improve trade. Organized labor systems increase agricultural output. Record keeping becomes more advanced. A community that builds a pyramid becomes stronger in every way. The process of creating the monument strengthens the state that commands it. The pyramid builds the civilization just as the civilization builds the pyramid. The size and visibility of the pyramid serve an undeniable political purpose. It tells the entire population that the ruler authority reaches the heavens. A king associated with a pyramid claims a divine destiny. The structure itself becomes a declaration of power carved into the horizon. The base spreads wide over the land, representing the many who support the ruler. The peak rises to a single point, representing the one who commands them. The geometry mirrors the hierarchy of society. Many serve few, the few serve the one. The one reaches for the divine. Every person in the kingdom could see the pyramid from miles away. It overshadowed villages and fields. It reminded the common people that the pharaoh lived not only among them but above them. It reminded subjects that their leader had the support of the gods. In such a world, authority did not require explanation. It was visible in stone. The pyramid was a constant, silent proclamation that the ruler power was absolute and eternal. It also represented control over time itself. No matter how long a ruler lived, his command would outlast his final breath. When a pharaoh died, his pyramid ensured his influence did not fade. The monuments became anchors that held the identity of the nation steady even as generations passed. They served as fixed points in history around which politics, religion, and culture continued to revolve. A king who left behind a pyramid did not leave behind uncertainty. He left behind a stone guarantee that his successors would rule under his shadow. This propagation of authority continued far beyond Egypt. In Nubia, steep pyramids rising from desert sand reinforced claims of royal legitimacy. When the Nubian kings conquered Egypt for a time, they used pyramids to signal continuity with the traditions of their new domain. The pyramid shape declared that their right to rule was grounded in ancient divine order. It was a visual way to adopt the authority of an established empire. Across the ocean, the Maya rulers built pyramids that dominated the heart of their cities. These structures elevated temples where rituals confirmed the sacred status of kings. When the people gathered in massive plazas to witness ceremonies on the summits, they saw their leaders transformed into mediators between the human world and the gods. The pyramid became a stage where power was demonstrated and reinforced through spectacle. No written law could express authority more vividly than that performance in stone. In China, the imperial mounds surrounding the capital cities served as reminders that emperors rule by the mandate of heaven. A ruler who failed to provide order could lose that mandate, but a ruler buried within a sacred mound, surrounded by symbols of cosmic balance, suggested that legitimacy would continue even after death. The pyramid form became part of a system of beliefs about stability and continuity that held the empire together through centuries of change. These examples show that pyramid architecture was not only a religious concept, it was also a human strategy. It provided rulers with a tangible way to project strength, ensure loyalty, and maintain unity. When people see a monument that required unimaginable effort to build, they understand that their society is powerful. When that monument survives disaster after disaster, they understand that their society is enduring. The pyramid does not rely on language to communicate. It does not require translation or interpretation. It speaks directly through its size, its shape, and its presence. It says that the world has a center, and that center is the ruler who commands the heights. It says that the state is strong enough to shape the earth. It says that memory will not fade, and obedience will not falter. It says that power is eternal. But political power alone could not compel a shape to appear in so many different cultures, separated by oceans and ages. There must be an additional reason for its universal appeal. Something deeper than religion and authority. Something buried within the mathematics of the structure itself. In the next chapter, we explore how the pyramid became a silent demonstration of advanced geometry. It encoded knowledge that was practical and symbolic at the same time. The pyramid returned what humans learned about the world back into the world in a form that would endure long after classrooms and libraries decayed. Inside the cool darkness of a pyramid, we feel something ancient pressing against our imagination. The silence is heavy. The stones are close. This is not a space made for the living, not a place meant for footsteps or breath. It is a chamber built for a journey that happens after the heartbeat stops. The pyramid was shaped so that death would not be the end of a story. Instead, it became the beginning of the most important chapter in a pharaoh existence. A chapter written not in papyrus or ink, but in stone and starlight. To the ancient Egyptians, death was not the absence of life. It was the transition into a higher state of being. A pharaoh was not simply a ruler. He was a living embodiment of divine order. When he died, his body returned to the earth, yet his soul had to rise. The pyramid was a guarantee that this rising would succeed. It was a spiritual engine designed by priests, astronomers, architects, and workers who all believed that their king deserved eternity. The structure itself became the ceremony. The stone walls held the instructions, the angles and passages shaped the ritual. Everything about a pyramid interior exists so that a soul can leave the human world and take its rightful place among the eternal stars. When we consider the long centuries that separate us from these ancient minds, it is easy to think that such beliefs were based only on myth. Yet myths are not foolish when they shape entire civilizations. In Egyptian thought, humans contain more than one soul. One part stays with the body, another part travels, another part watches over loved ones. To preserve these many pieces of existence required special care. The body had to be protected from decay so that the soul could recognize itself. The name had to be written in stone so that memory would not fail. The tomb had to be sealed so that thieves could not break the link between the physical and the spiritual. Without these protections, the soul could become lost forever. The pyramid provided all these safeguards at once. Deep inside the pyramid lies the king chamber. It is the heart of the monument, carefully placed where gravitational forces are most evenly balanced. Above it, heavy granite beams form layered ceilings called relieving arrangements. These beams are arranged so that the immense weight of millions of stones will be pushed outward rather than downward. The room below remains untouched by crushing pressure. Engineers today still study this design with respect, recognizing that it solved a problem that would challenge even modern builders. The chamber was not allowed to fail, because if the chamber failed, the passage to eternity failed. Next to the king chamber, there is often a smaller chamber whose purpose remains debated. Some call it the queen chamber, even though no queens are buried there. Others believe it was a symbolic chamber for rebirth or a storage place for the pharaoh's spiritual organs. The truth is that these spaces may have served multiple sacred roles. They could hold statues of the king, food offerings, or objects used in rituals after death. The Egyptians saw no divide between matter and spirit. A loaf of bread inside a pyramid was not only bread, it was nourishment for the soul in the next world. The passages leading into the pyramid also tell a story. One passage begins above the ground, then descends sharply into the bedrock. Darkness presses against the walls. This downward journey reflects the moment when the soul confronts the unknown. It mirrors the path of the sun which disappears into the underworld each night. In Egyptian belief, the sun travels beneath the earth through a realm of challenges and transformation before rising again. The pharaoh soul is expected to make the same journey. The stone pathway teaches this truth silently through its shape. Then the passage rises again into larger chambers. The soul moves upward just as the sun rises at dawn. The architecture reenacts the cycle of light, darkness, and renewed light. Each angle, each turn, each stretch of the corridor becomes a symbolic step in the pharaoh's spiritual rebirth. These experiences were not meant to be seen by human eyes. They were meant to be felt by the spirit as invisible guidance. The builders did not create decoration for mortal pleasure. They carved pathways for immortality. Above these corridors, near the roof of the pyramid, tiny shafts stretch outward toward the sky. These narrow channels are angled with intention. One aims toward the region of the imperishable stars in the northern sky. These stars do not set. They circle the heavens without disappearing. The Egyptians believed that the pharaoh would join these eternal lights and live forever in their steady glow. Another shaft points toward the star Sirius, the brightest star visible in the sky, whose yearly rising signaled the flood of the Nile. Sirius was associated with the goddess Isis, who restored her husband Osiris to life. Through this connection, the pharaoh's soul would join the cycle of resurrection. The combination of engineering and belief reveals a remarkable truth. The pyramid is not simply a monument that contains remains. It is a star map and a resurrection chamber. It is a machine that uses geometry to launch a soul into eternity. No other structure on Earth has been designed with this specific purpose in mind. The pyramid is a funeral that never ends. It keeps repeating the story of death and rebirth every day as sunlight hits its peak and shadows shift across its faces. In the night, the stars continue that ritual above its silent shadow. Beyond the walls of the inner chambers lies a world of traps and misdirection. Ancient builders placed false passages and hidden blocks to confuse robbers. They believed that anyone who disturbed the pharaoh resting place risked the wrath of the gods. These traps were not simply defenses. They were spiritual tests. Only a soul, pure and guided, could pass through the true route to the chamber of transformation. The pyramid challenges any intruder to prove that they belong inside. Those who did not belong would be lost, crushed, or sealed forever. The burial process itself was a sacred journey. Priests performed rituals in the Valley Temple, an entrance building usually placed near the river. The mummified body was placed on a boat and transported along a processional causeway toward the pyramid. This path connected the world of water and life to the world of stone and eternity. The boat symbolized the vessel of the sun god traveling across the sky. By following the same path, the pharaoh became one with the cycle of cosmic renewal. Once inside the pyramid, the body was placed in its sarcophagus. The closing of the chamber was a moment of transformation. Sealing the doors did not trap the king. It released him into a higher realm. The enormous weight of stone above the chamber symbolized the gravity of divine authority, pressing the king into his rightful place in the universe. Those who sealed the chamber believed that their duty ensured the continuation of the world. If the pharaoh did not rise, the balance of existence might fail. This responsibility explains the precision and care that shaped every stone block. The workers understood that they were constructing more than a tomb. They were constructing eternity. Each block was a prayer in physical form, each angle a direction to the gods. Even today, the structure retains that power. Modern people may no longer believe that the pharaoh soul moves through shafts into the stars. yet the architecture still conveys a sense of awe and purpose that transcends time. In Mesoamerica, pyramids express similar beliefs about death and rebirth. Underneath the stepped platforms, tombs of kings and priests were placed with offerings and ritual objects. Above these tombs, ceremonies reenacted the myths of creation and cosmic renewal. The living and the dead participated in the same structure, separated by stone but united in meaning. The pyramid became a vertical story of existence, with the underworld below, the human world in the middle, and the world of the gods at the top. In China, the buried emperors rested within vast underground palaces, surrounded by replicas of their earthly powers. The earthen pyramids that mark these tombs asserted that the emperor continued to rule even after death. His spirit remained active. His presence continued to protect the empire. The mound above symbolized the mountain where heaven meets earth. The unseen world below preserved the empire shape into the afterlife. Across continents, the same truth emerges. The pyramid was created to conquer death, not by avoiding it, but by transforming it. The structure guides a soul upward while sheltering the body below. The pyramid makes eternity believable. It carves immortality into the earth. This spiritual design also served a cultural purpose. When a civilization invests its greatest skill into a monument for the dead, it declares that death itself does not diminish meaning. It declares that memory is worth the labor of thousands. It declares that identity persists through time. The pyramid carries that message forward across centuries without ever speaking a word. Even now, in the modern age, we stand before pyramids and feel something ancient move inside us. Our knowledge of physics and astronomy does not reduce their power. Instead, it increases our respect. We recognize the intelligence behind their construction. We understand the devotion required to complete them. We sense the human fear of oblivion and the refusal to accept it. That refusal is the reason pyramids exist. They are the human answer to the fading of all things. As we finish our exploration of the pyramid as a machine for the afterlife, we can see that its purpose was never singular. It was not only for religion, or only for engineering, or only for political power. It was for the combination of all these. The outer shape communicates authority to the living. The inner passages support the journey of the dead. The celestial alignments connect both to the eternal cycles of the sky. The pyramid is the central symbol of a complete worldview. This realization leads us toward the next question. If the pyramid shape carries such overwhelming meaning and function, then it must also carry messages set intentionally for the future. Pyramids are not only memorials for those who built them, they are signals meant to outlast everything else. To crack the full truth of pyramids, we must now consider how they speak across time, how they carry meaning far beyond the reach of their creators. The pyramid does not merely stand as a tomb or a cosmic map. It also stands as the greatest advertisement of power that ancient rulers ever created. When a civilization invests unimaginable labor into a single monument, that monument becomes a message carved into the horizon. It says that the world is ruled. It says that authority is not temporary. It says that one life has the right to shape the lives of many. It says that power can be made permanent. We can imagine a traveler thousands of years ago approaching the Nile Valley. The river glimmers in the distance, a ribbon of life flowing through the desert. Palm trees sway, villages cluster along the banks, farmers plant seeds in the rich black soil. All of this appears fragile against the endless stretches of sand. But then, rising above the heat waves, the traveler sees something unnatural. A shape too perfect to belong to the shifting desert. A triangular mountain, straight-edged and pointing to the sky. The traveler sees the pyramid before seeing the city. The pyramid becomes the introduction to the civilization. It defines the world before any person speaks. To see such a structure is to feel small. It overwhelms the senses. The blocks are so large they seem impossible to move. The height seems to defy the strength of human hands. The precision of the geometry suggests a knowledge that comes from the gods. The pyramid takes control of the imagination. It tells every person who looks upon it that the ruler who ordered its construction commands power greater than ordinary humanity. This is propaganda in its purest form. It does not persuade through argument. It persuades through awe. It allows no room for doubt. Standing in its shadow, a person does not think about rebellion. A person thinks about eternity. Political messages are often spoken. They require language that can change or be forgotten. But the pyramid does not speak in words. It speaks in presence. As long as the pyramid remains, the message remains. Even if the names of the rulers fade, the claim remains loud. The ruler who built this is forever powerful. The pyramid therefore becomes a silent ruler in its own right. It continues the authority of kings long after their bodies have turned to dust. This continuity of power is critical for a civilization. A kingdom is only as strong as the belief in its permanence. When people fear that leadership is fragile, loyalty dissolves. When they believe that power is eternal, obedience becomes natural. That stability is reinforced by the sheer difficulty of construction. The workers cannot ignore the king while they labor to build his monument. The stone carriers feel the weight of his command with every lift. The planners and architects shape the symbol of his authority with every measurement. The entire nation becomes involved in the construction of the king immortality. Loyalty is not just expected, it is physically practiced. Many imagine that the pyramids were built by slaves, but archaeological evidence suggests a more complex truth. Many workers were skilled laborers. They were housed in organized worker villages. They ate bread, drank beer, and received medical care. These were citizens fulfilling a duty to their state and to their god-king. Their labor was a form of devotion. In building the pyramid, they built their own identity as Egyptians. The pyramid created a bond between ruler and people, not a bond of affection, but a bond of purpose. The king provided order, food distribution, and protection from chaos. In return, the people gave their labor and loyalty. The pyramid symbolized this mutual dependence. A monument too large for any individual reminded the population that only unity under a single leader could achieve greatness. When the pyramid was finished, it did not stop commanding society. It became the permanent center of the king cult. Priests conducted daily rituals in temples attached to the monument. Offerings were made in the king name even generations later. The pyramid anchored memory so that no successor could erase the legacy of their predecessor. History became physically impossible to rewrite because the stone stood in resistance to forgetting. Other cultures discovered the same propaganda power. In Nubia, the steep pyramids built for kings became declarations of legitimacy. They announced that the rulers of that land deserved to inherit the ancient authority of Egypt. A pyramid there said that the kings were not weak imitators. They were rightful heirs to sacred power. In Mesoamerica, the Maya and the Aztec used pyramids to reinforce public obedience. Ceremonies performed at the top could be seen by thousands in the plazas below. When leaders performed rituals to communicate with the gods, the entire population witnessed the connection. The pyramid turned religion into theater, and the ruler into a performer whose role was to maintain cosmic balance. Any doubt in his divine favor would be erased by the simple fact that he stood above the people, closer to the gods. Even in China, where the pyramids are shaped as earthen mounds rather than stepped or smooth stone structures, the message remains the same. These mounds rise from the land like sacred hills, marking the resting place of emperors who continue to influence the living world. Their presence declares that the empire is guided by ancestors who dwell between earth and heaven. Those ancestors grant or withdraw the mandate of authority. The structure itself reminds rulers and citizens that power does not come from the present alone. It comes from a continuous lineage reaching back to divine origin. Political power is often about visibility. A leader must be seen to be believed. The pyramid makes sure that power is always visible, not just during ceremonies, not just during life. Always, day and night, century after century. There is another deeper psychological effect in pyramid propaganda. The shape implies hierarchy. The wide base of common people supports the narrow peak of leadership. Society climbs upward from many to one. This visual metaphor reinforces the idea that inequality is natural and necessary. The pyramid suggests that the highest position is the smallest because only one can reach that height. The rest remain below. This idea becomes part of the landscape. It cannot be challenged easily when every horizon is dominated by the symbol of this hierarchy. The pyramid also claims dominion over time. When a monument can survive earthquakes, floods, and wars, it suggests that the ruler power cannot be destroyed by mortal forces. Even if enemies conquer the land, the pyramid remains. It mocks the temporary nature of conflict. It says, rulers may fall, but the idea of rule endures. This permanence intimidates rivals and strengthens allegiance. A pyramid is a weapon against forgetting. It is a fortress against rebellion. It is a monument that turns the passage of time into a servant of authority. The propaganda of the pyramid is not aggressive. It does not shout. It simply exists. And existence is enough. Its silence is more commanding than speeches. Its stillness is more convincing than armies. It becomes the reference point for everything around it. When farmers look up from their fields, they see the pyramid. When traders arrive by boat, they see the pyramid. When children grow into adults, the pyramid remains the measuring stick of their world. It defines the possible. It defines the divine. It defines the future. This strategy continues today. Modern societies build tall towers and enormous public buildings to assert national pride. Skyscrapers reach upward like modern pyramids. Capitol buildings with massive columns declare authority. Monuments made of stone and metal promise that the ideas of today will live beyond tomorrow. We have replaced gods with nations, but the architecture remains similar. The pyramid is the blueprint for how power speaks without words. Even destroyed pyramids continue to serve propaganda. A ruined pyramid still claims history. It says that greatness once lived here. It pressures descendants to reclaim that greatness. It anchors identity to the land. It shapes memory even when its original purpose is unknown. The greatest secret of pyramid propaganda is that it endures even when belief systems collapse. The king might have built the pyramid to ensure his worship forever. The rituals might have vanished. The language might have changed. But the structure still commands awe. It still bends the imagination into reverence. New generations assign new meanings. Yet the authority within the form persists. The pyramid as propaganda succeeds because it does not ask to be believed. It forces belief through scale, through permanence, through geometry. It tells each viewer that humans can rise above themselves through collective effort. It tells them that someone among them deserves to stand at the peak. This idea is powerful. It shaped ancient nations. It continues to shape modern ones. The pyramid remains the ultimate symbol of control. Now that we understand the political force that gave rise to pyramids and allowed them to reshape entire societies, we can explore another defining truth. These monumental forms did not only appear in one place, they emerged independently across the world. Even without contact between civilizations, humans discovered the same solution to the problem of immortality. The pyramid is a universal answer to universal fears and universal dreams. The pyramid shape spread across continents not because one empire taught another, but because the form itself invited rediscovery. Wherever humans faced the problem of permanence, wherever they wrestled with the mysteries of death, divinity, and identity, the pyramid emerged as the answer. It did not belong to a single culture. It belonged to the human mind. Imagine long before ships crossed oceans or caravans linked distant lands. In the deserts of Africa, along the rivers of China, and deep within the jungles of the Americas, people looked to the horizon and wondered how to touch the sky. They saw mountains and felt awe. They saw stars and felt longing. They saw rulers and felt the weight of power. And in those moments of wonder, the pyramid revealed itself as the most sensible monument for ambition and belief. In ancient Nubia, south of Egypt, steep pyramids rise like sharp peaks from the red sands. These were tombs for kings and queens of the kingdom of Kush. The pyramids are smaller than those at Giza, but their sides are much steeper, rising with a fierce determination that seems to pierce the sky. The Nubian rulers adopted the pyramid form after conquering and ruling Egypt for a time. They understood the power of that shape. To them, it represented legitimacy, continuity, and divine approval. By building pyramids, they claimed a right to the same cosmic order that Egypt had mastered for centuries. The Nubian pyramids were often covered with brilliant plaster and decorated with carved reliefs showing the rulers receiving life from the gods. These decorations turned the structure into a frozen ritual. They told every viewer that the royal lineage did not cease in death. It continued upward into the heavens. The funerary rites inside followed ideas that mixed Egyptian belief with local tradition, proving that the pyramid shape was flexible enough to carry new meanings while preserving its ancient role. Across the ocean in the Americas, the Maya built pyramids for a different landscape and a different sky. In places like Tikal and Calakmul, towering pyramids rose above the forest canopy. These were not meant to be sealed tombs alone. They were stages for performance and devotion. Rulers climbed their steep stairs and appeared as living gods, visible to thousands gathered below in vast plazas. When a king addressed the crowd from the summit, he seemed lifted on the shoulders of the world. The pyramid gave his voice the height of the sky. Beneath some Maya pyramids were elaborate tombs filled with jade ornaments, painted murals, and offerings to accompany the dead into the afterlife. As rulers were buried deeper within the structure, new platforms were built on top, growing the pyramid outward and upward with each generation. In this layer upon layer construction, we find the story of time. Each generation literally stands on top of the previous, inheriting its power while adding to its legacy. The pyramid becomes not a single event, but a chain of events, a continuous rise of authority. Further north, the Aztec in the Valley of Mexico continued the pyramid tradition with their own emphasis on ritual spectacle. At the sacred precinct of Tenochtitlan, twin temples sat atop a massive stepped pyramid. One temple honored the god of war and sun, the other the god of rain and fertility. Their dual presence symbolized cosmic balance, destruction and creation locked together. From that height, priests performed ceremonies believed to maintain the order of the universe. Blood offered to the gods was thought to replenish the sun's strength so it could rise each day. The pyramid therefore became a literal engine of survival, sustaining the cosmos through ritual. In China, the burial mounds of emperors appear as broad earthen pyramids shaped like gentle hills. Though their form differs from the steep faces of Egypt or Mesoamerica, their meaning remains deeply connected to authority and eternity. Beneath the surface lie entire underground worlds. The tomb of the first emperor, still sealed beneath its pyramid mound, is said to contain a model of the empire surrounded by flowing rivers of mercury. Soldiers of terracotta stand ready to protect him in the afterlife. The pyramid mound above ensures that his reign continues under heaven watch. It anchors the spirit of empire to the land. These great structures reveal that pyramids evolved differently depending on the environment, available materials, and cultural needs. In Egypt, limestone and granite produced smooth triangles that captured sunlight. In the Americas, volcanic stone and limestone created towering stairways to the gods. In China, packed earth connected ancestral spirits to fertile soil and agricultural cycles. Yet beneath all these differences lies a shared purpose. The pyramid provides stability to the physical world and meaning to the spiritual one. Independent invention is one of the strongest proofs of universal truth. When the same solution emerges in many places without contact, that solution addresses a fundamental human challenge. The pyramid answers the relationship between humans and forces larger than themselves. It is the expression of vertical desire, the desire to rise above the ground, the desire to reach the sky, the desire to transcend decay. Even in places where only small pyramids or mound-like forms existed, they often marked high-status burials or sacred sites. Across Europe, ancient cairns built of stacked stones rise into simple triangular shapes. In North America, the Mississippian culture built massive platform mounds that resembled flat-topped pyramids. These were used for ceremonies and elite residences. They controlled the skyline and organized the community around them. Everywhere we look, the pyramid draws humans into a hierarchy of height. This universal appeal also reflects the natural stability of the form. A pyramid does not require advanced mathematics to build. Its sloping form emerges from trial and error. If a builder makes a tall structure and it begins to collapse, they widen the base. They reduce the angle. Eventually, they find that the safest form is a broad pyramid. Structure teaches shape. Nature instructs design. The pyramid is discovered simply by wanting to build upward. But this does not mean pyramids were simple efforts. As civilizations matured, the pyramid became more sophisticated. Alignments with stars grew more accurate. Internal passages grew more symbolic. Outer faces became smoother and polished. The pyramid evolved into a masterwork of engineering and meaning. It became more than stability. It became intelligence. As cultures developed writing, astronomy, and government, the pyramid absorbed all those achievements. It became a library of knowledge held in stone. It preserved proportions, directions, and angles that communicated scientific understanding. The pyramid turned geometry into a statement. It told the future that the past was not ignorant, that ancient minds held secrets modern minds must uncover. This evolution of pyramid design proves that humans saw the shape as something worthy of improvement. They refined its purpose and transformed its function. What began as a sacred mound became a precise architectural declaration. That declaration said, "We know the cosmos, we know ourselves, and we intend to last." The universality of pyramids challenges us to reconsider what we assume about progress. We often think that different societies move in different directions, but when we look at pyramids, we see convergence. We see that the human desire to understand existence pushes us all towards similar answers. The pyramid is the ultimate common denominator of ambition. Yet even as the pyramid carries spiritual and political weight, there remains another layer of meaning encoded in its structure. A layer written not in images or ritual, but in numbers. The pyramid may also be a mathematical message, a message carved so deeply into earth that time cannot erase it. A pyramid may seem at first like the simplest of shapes, just a point rising above a square. But hidden within that simplicity are ideas that reveal how ancient civilizations understood the world. The pyramid is geometry made into mountain form. Its sides, proportions, and alignments preserve knowledge that would otherwise vanish. When we study these structures today, we discover that they are not only monuments of belief, they are monuments of reason. In Egypt, the Great Pyramid at Giza expresses mathematical intelligence with astonishing precision. Its base is a perfect square. Each side measures nearly the same length, differing only by the width of a human hand. The angles of the corners are so exact that modern surveys confirm only the smallest deviation from perfect geometry. This accuracy is not an accident. It is the result of careful measuring tools, repetitive checking, and an advanced understanding of how to divide and lay out land. Take the slope of the Great Pyramid faces. They rise at an angle close to 51 degrees. This angle produces a fascinating ratio. If the perimeter of the base is compared to the height, the relationship comes very close to the number that later mathematicians would call pi. The ancient builders did not write equations or calculate irrational numbers the way we do today. Yet their design shows they grasped a proportional harmony between a circle and a square. The pyramid unites the earth, symbolized by the square base, with the heavens symbolized by the circle. From ground to peak, the pyramid is the geometry of connection. Even the number of triangular faces reflects cosmic order. 4 faces rising from the earth corners meet at one single point. This expresses the movement from the physical realm of the 4 directions to the divine realm above. A pyramid is a diagram of transformation made from massive stone. Egyptian surveyors used ropes knotted at regular intervals to measure straight lines and right angles. They knew how to create a square corner using a triangle whose sides followed a simple ratio, such as 3:4:5. This produced perfect geometry without needing a drawing board or metal instruments. These surveyors were called rope stretchers, and they worked with the precision of scientists. Their methods shaped the pyramid into a machine of mathematical order. The top of the pyramid once held a capstone called a pyramidion. It was often covered in shiny material like gold or polished limestone so that it glowed in sunlight. The pyramidion completed the geometric form. It acted like the final solution to a mathematical puzzle. Without it, the pyramid is a question. With it, the pyramid is a conclusion. That last shining stone represented perfection, the point where human effort meets divine alignment. Mathematics also determined the orientation of pyramids. A small error at the base would twist the entire structure. Yet the Great Pyramid aligns with true north with mind-bending accuracy. Ancient astronomers achieved this by tracking stars as they circled the pole. They observed the crossing of the meridian, the moment a star reached its highest point in the sky. Over years of observation, they found the perfect direction. This precision reveals a deep knowledge of the slow shifting of the heavens over generations. The interior of the Great Pyramid contains dimensions that some believe encode mathematical ideas. The height of the king chamber combined with the width of its walls reflects relationships between squares and rectangles that later became central to design. The builders may not have spoken about geometry the way later scholars did, but they understood the power of proportion. For them, numbers were not abstract symbols. Numbers were the language through which the universe speaks. In Mesoamerica, the Maya also built pyramids with mathematical purpose. Their stepped structures align with celestial cycles so exactly that shadows on the stairways reveal seasonal changes. They use numbers tied to their precise calendar system, which tracked cycles of days connected to astronomy and ritual life. The number of steps on some pyramids equals the number of days in a year. When combined with the platforms at top, the structure becomes a calendar that will still function even if every book is lost. At the Pyramid of Kukulkan in Chichen Itza, each side has 91 steps. 4 sides create a total of 364 steps. With the platform on top included, the total becomes 365. The pyramid therefore physically embodies the length of a solar year. The building itself marks the passage of time. Anyone who stands before it sees mathematics applied to culture and survival. In China, the shape of imperial mounds embodies symmetry and orientation that reflect the emperor role as the axis between heaven and earth. The 4 directions matter deeply. Rituals took place aligned to these directions. The mound geometry expresses the order of the cosmos mapped onto the empire. The emperor stood at the center of this geometry. His coordinates governed the land. The mathematical brilliance of pyramids shows that ancient civilizations considered stability, symmetry, and harmony to be part of spiritual truth. Science and religion were not separate. Mathematics was another form of worship. To align a pyramid perfectly was to demonstrate that the ruler and the people understood the rules that shaped the universe. It was a declaration that their civilization was built on cosmic law. We find similar patterns across the world. In every case, the pyramid uses shape to create meaning. The base is the earth. The point is the sky. Proportion acts as a bridge. When numbers come to life in stone, the structure becomes a message. That message says that chaos can be tamed. It says that humans can learn the language of the stars. It says that the universe has rules and we can discover them. The longevity of pyramids proves that the mathematics behind them was not guesswork. If the angles were wrong, the structure would collapse. If the weight was not perfectly distributed, the interior chambers would fail. If the alignment was sloppy, the cosmic symbolism would lose its power. The fact that pyramids still stand means that the numbers were correct. Even the act of building a pyramid required mathematical mastery. Hundreds of thousands of stones had to be shaped and placed precisely. Slopes had to remain consistent. 4 inclined planes had to meet exactly at a single point above the center of the base. This demanded coordination and planning that transformed entire workforces into instruments of accuracy. Society itself became aligned to a geometric mission. A pyramid says that intelligence is timeless. It is a monument to the idea that knowledge must outlast its creators. That is why ancient people trusted mathematics to carry their beliefs into the future. Numbers do not die. Proportions do not forget. Even when languages disappear and stories become dust, geometry remains readable to anyone who can measure and observe. The pyramid therefore stands as a message across ages. It tells us that the civilization that built it was watching the sky, studying the earth, and using reason to shape faith. It tells us that their understanding of the cosmos was not primitive, it was profound. Now that we have explored the pyramid as a statement of mathematics, we must examine the spaces within that support both structure and symbolism. The inside of a pyramid is not empty, it is crafted with purpose. The next chapter takes us deeper into the stone itself, revealing chambers and voids hidden for thousands of years. To enter a pyramid is to step through a doorway that leads not merely into a building, but into a concept. The outside declares power and alignment with the cosmos, yet the inside reveals a different world hidden behind the facade of stone. It is a world designed with secrecy and strategy, carved in darkness, where every block above presses its weight into a silent pact to protect what lies within. To walk the interior passages is to feel the architecture thinking. It thinks about gravity, it thinks about eternity, it thinks about what might threaten the treasure of a soul in transition. The walls of a pyramid do not reveal their purpose easily. They challenge explorers, ancient and modern, to question why a passage goes one direction, then suddenly another. Why the height shifts from crouching crawl space to soaring stone vault. Why some corridors descend and others rise abruptly. It may feel irregular and confusing to us today, yet every angle serves a purpose. The pyramid interior is a deliberate puzzle. It is a journey that must be earned. Let us imagine an ancient workman deep inside the rising pyramid. The outside still unfinished, sunlight spilling down ramps and scaffolds. But inside, his only light comes from small lamps fueled by oil and determination. He places a stone block, checks its alignment with rough but effective tools, then listens to the echo as he taps it into position. Each sound tells him if the stone is properly seated. He knows that when the entrance is sealed, when the corridors are filled with dangerous traps, when the pharaoh rests in his granite chamber, none of this craftsmanship will be seen by living eyes again. The work is for the gods and for time itself. In the Great Pyramid at Giza, there are 3 main interior chambers. The lowest descends into the bedrock, unfinished in many ways, as though the builders began digging a path and then changed their minds. Higher above sits the Queen Chamber, placed along the central axis, and above that, deep inside the heart of the stone mountain, rests the King Chamber, surrounded by one of the most extraordinary engineering innovations of the ancient world. Above the King Chamber are a series of horizontal spaces created by massive granite slabs. These are called stress-relieving arrangements. They prevent the unimaginable weight of the pyramid from crushing the sacred room below. If even one beam had cracked wrongly, the entire chamber could have collapsed, but they remain firm and precise more than 45 centuries later. Modern architects examine this system with reverence, for it reveals a mastery of force and counterforce, learned through trial, observation, and unbroken logic. The granite itself was transported from quarries far to the south. Stones weighing many tens of tons were dragged across land and floated along the Nile during the inundation season, when the river swelled with life. Each slab arrived through the effort of many hands and hearts, then was guided into its final resting position not by machinery but by cooperation and focus. The builders knew that the King Chamber needed walls that would not buckle under eternity. Granite became the skeleton of immortality. Something remarkable has happened in our own time that adds new mystery to these ancient spaces. Modern scientists have used subatomic particles called muons to scan the interior of the Great Pyramid without drilling into its body. These particles born in the sky pass through stone but are slowed by density. By tracking these tiny messengers, researchers discovered hidden voids that no one knew existed. One such void lies above the Grand Gallery, a magnificent ascending corridor that connects the lower passages to the highest chamber. The void is large, almost cathedral-like in scale, yet it remains sealed away with no direct access. We can only speculate why it exists. It may be another architectural trick to reduce pressure around the gallery. It may be a space to realign weight distribution, or it may have served a purpose still beyond our understanding, possibly symbolic or spiritual. What is certain is that the pyramid interior holds more secrets than we once believed. The ancients left rooms that refused to reveal their stories fully. In some pyramids, the entrances were cleverly disguised, and corridors filled with blocking stones made from granite too strong to be moved easily. The builders anticipated robbers, and they prepared the structure to defeat them. The The dead pharaoh was worth more than gold. His afterlife could not be threatened by greed. The pyramid would fight on his behalf long after the final priest had sealed the doorway. Descending passages that first led downward, then rise upward again, reflect the journey of death. Darkness first, uncertainty first, then ascent back into the light of eternity. The architecture plays like a ritual, shaping experience without a single written instruction. Even without priest present to guide, the structure itself becomes the teacher. The soul must move according to the pattern written in stone. The grand gallery inside the Great Pyramid is a breathtaking example of this philosophy. Its ceiling climbs upward in a corbelled structure, each stone slightly overlapping the one below. It creates a tall passage that feels like a great throat swallowing the ascending traveller into the heart of the mountain. The steep climb reflects effort. Transformation requires labour. Ascension demands struggle. The architecture insists that rising is not given but earned. At the end of this climb, the king chamber lies waiting. Its walls, smooth and severe, hold a sarcophagus of red granite. The box is positioned with incredible care along the north-south axis and is slightly larger than the doorway, which means it must have been placed before the room was fully enclosed. The pharaoh final bed was built into the pyramid, never meant to leave. It is the anchor of the entire design. Without that sarcophagus, the pyramid purpose would not be complete. Other chambers are sometimes left unexplained. The queen chamber, though named later by explorers, was likely intended for spiritual functions. Some believe it held a statue of the king or an object that allowed his spirit to interact with the living world even after burial. The chamber has shafts as well, though they do not fully reach the outer surface. They may have once been symbolic routes for the essence of the king rather than functional star pathways. The architecture dances between physical reality and symbolic intention at every turn. In many other pyramids of Egypt, the interiors contain walls inscribed with the earliest known religious writings, called the pyramid texts. These words speak of ascension, protection, spells of power, and the pharaoh transformation into a star. They promise that the king will rise and shine forever. When read aloud in ancient ceremonies, these spells echoed through stone corridors, blending belief with structure. The pyramid turned spoken thought into eternal geometry. In the Americas, the interiors of pyramids also expressed connection between life and death. Beneath the pyramid of the feathered serpent in Teotihuacan, tunnels filled with offerings represent the underworld. Liquid mercury was discovered in a chamber, possibly used to symbolize a cosmic river. The Maya buried rulers deep inside their pyramids, then sealed their tombs and built new levels above, creating a layered history of leadership and lineage. The inside became a living genealogy, a library of royal identity. In China, beneath the earthen pyramid of the first emperor, an entire world was crafted in darkness. Artificial rivers, starry ceilings, and terracotta guardians reproduce the empire in miniature. The emperor continues his rule below ground just as he did above it. The tomb ensures that when the soul moves into the next realm, it carries its authority with familiarity. The pyramid interior is an empire turned inward. All these examples reveal the same truth. The pyramid interior is not a hidden afterthought. It is the core of the structure meaning. The outside announces what the civilization believes. The inside enacts those beliefs. To ignore the inner passages is to misunderstand the pyramid itself. We are left to wonder how many secrets remain inside these ancient monuments. How many hidden spaces wait beyond sealed stone? How much of the blueprint of eternity still lies unrevealed? The pyramids hold silence well. They outlive questioners and bury their answers in the bedrock of time. As we continue our investigation, one final theme emerges. A pyramid does not only hold the dead, it holds a message for the living of the future. Its form and its endurance carry a voice that time cannot erase. In the next chapter, we will explore that voice. The pyramid stands as a declaration to ages not yet born. It says that the builders lived with intention. It says that memory has weight. It says that even though they knew death was inevitable, they believed something could last. When we stand before a pyramid, we are not merely looking at the past. We are being spoken to by the past. These structures were built with the clear intention of being seen by eyes that did not yet exist. They were built to outlast storms, conquer erosion, endure earthquakes, and survive the collapse of civilizations. They were crafted not only for the people who built them, but for the people who would come after. The pyramid is a message launched across time. Most monuments vanish, walls crumble, statues break, written language becomes unreadable, wood rots, metal rusts, even entire cities have slipped beneath waves or sands, yet pyramids remain. Their mass resists destruction, their shape rejects ruin. They endure because endurance is their purpose. Every stone exists to defy disappearance. This defiance tells us something essential about the minds that built them. Ancient rulers feared not just death, they feared being forgotten. Memory was a form of existence. To be erased was to die twice. They wanted their names to ride across centuries and land far beyond the horizon of their lives. They needed a vessel that could carry identity into the future. The pyramid became that vessel. Even when the pharaohs themselves vanished from memory and their names were lost beneath shifting sands, the pyramids remained. Travelers from far lands saw these colossal shapes and knew that once a mighty power had ruled there. The stones speak without needing language. They say, "We were here, we were strong, we dared to shape eternity." Civilizations decay, but pyramids remain like anchors in the ocean of time. They remind future generations that greatness once lived and could live again. A ruined pyramid still commands respect. A partially buried pyramid still signals ambition. Even broken, they hold a presence that is hard to ignore. The pyramid shape itself tells future observers that the people who built it understood the sky. They watched stars, they measured sunlight, they aligned their monuments with cardinal directions. They prepared burial chambers for journeys into constellations that would still shine thousands of years later. The structure tells us that they had a model of the universe in mind, a model that included a place for the human soul among eternal patterns. In Egypt, this message is especially clear. The pyramids serve as statements of cosmic order. The ancient Egyptians believed in the principle called Ma'at. It meant balance, truth, justice, and harmony. When the pharaoh ruled according to Ma'at, the world remained stable. When he failed, chaos threatened to rise. The pyramid, perfectly aligned and perfectly stable, is a stone version of Ma'at. It is the world in balance, the cosmos in harmony. It declares that order has triumphed over chaos. This concept is not unique to Egypt. In Mesoamerica, the pyramid shape served as a reminder that the gods required balance between life and death. Rituals on the summits reinforced the cycles of seasons, rain, and sun. When people saw the pyramid, they knew the gods were being honored and the world was being maintained. Even centuries later, when the ritual stopped, the pyramids continued to mark those ancient cosmic certainties. In China, the burial mounds express the belief that the empire and its rulers are part of a divine system. They stand as symbols of the mandate of heaven. When future generations see those mounds, they understand that leadership and destiny were once aligned. The pyramid remains a witness that authority once flowed from the heavens to the throne. Everywhere pyramids appear, they insist that human society was aligned with something grander. They tell us that ancient people thought deeply about their place in the universe. These messages travel through time without needing translation. The form speaks for itself. But the message is not always comforting. Pyramids also remind the future that power can take enormous effort, that immortality demands sacrifice, that order is built on labor. Thousands of workers shaped these structures block by block. Their names are mostly lost. Their sweat and skill remain silent in the stones. The pyramid speaks of ambition, but also of cost. If the rulers who built pyramids could speak to us today, their first words might be, "Remember me." Their second might be, "Understand what I built." The structure carries both desires. Memory is ensured by scale. Understanding is invited by design. This is why the pyramids still provoke questions. Who built them? How did they move the stones? Why are they aligned so perfectly? What do the internal chambers mean? Mystery preserves attention. Curiosity keeps memory alive. The pyramids attract inquiry like mountains attract storms. They generate interest simply by existing. Even time itself becomes an ally. Each century that passes without the pyramid falling increases its message power. The longer it survives, the more it proves that the builders achieved what they intended. They conquered forgetting. They conquered the erosion of history. They remain even when so much else has been buried beneath the sands of amnesia. Everything about the pyramid expresses continuity. The base rests on earth, symbolizing the physical realm. The peak touches sky, symbolizing the eternal. Between them lies the climb that all humans must make from dust toward meaning. This visual metaphor survives in every future viewer who looks up from the base and feels the shape rising into the impossible. Because the pyramid is a message, it invites interpretation. Each era reads it differently. Conquerors saw it as treasure. Explorers saw it as mystery. Scientists see it as data. But beneath every interpretation there remains the same unshifting truth. The pyramid endures. It refuses to disappear. And that was its greatest message from the beginning. Even as centuries bury cultures in silence, the pyramid stays. We read it with new eyes, but the message remains legible. Its meaning evolves, but its presence is constant. It stands in the gap between what once was and what could be again. There is a quiet moment that occurs when a person stands at the base of a pyramid. The mind drifts beyond history. The imagination climbs up the stone sides into the blue air. Questions echo internally. Who were they? What did they believe? What did they hope we would learn? Perhaps the answer is simply this. They wanted to prove that humans can make something that time cannot unmake. That belief can shape stone into memory. That hope can be carved into permanence. They wanted to show that the distance between life and eternity is climbable. As we near the end of our journey through the many truths of pyramids, we face one final chapter. A chapter that brings together all the reasons these structures have fascinated humanity for thousands of years. Their strength, their symbolism, their astronomy, their politics, their science, their prophecy. All of these unite into one idea. The pyramid stands where worlds meet. Its base is anchored in soil shaped by rivers and footsteps. Its peak disappears into the realm of stars and memory. It is the most human of structures, created by hands that blistered and bled. Yet, it is also the most cosmic of structures, aiming directly at eternity with a confidence that defies mortality. The pyramid shape endures not because it is mysterious, but because it solves the deepest challenge every civilization has faced: the desire to last. Let us imagine standing at the edge of the desert when the day is young, the sun still low, casting long shadows that stretch across sand like dark rivers. Ahead, the Great Pyramid of Giza rises with a calmness that seems to ignore time entirely. Its faces no longer polished, its casing stones mostly gone, yet the form remains unmistakable. The lines that define it are so clean, so strong, so logical, that even after thousands of years, the eye trusts the geometry. The structure says without words, "I will still be here when you are gone." To understand this form fully, we must remember everything we have learned along this journey. The pyramid is not simply a massive construction. It is an answer to multiple questions asked across cultures, continents, and eras. Why did humanity keep shaping mountains into triangles? Why did the same design emerge without communication between civilizations separated by oceans and centuries? Why did the form travel through time without losing meaning? The first reason is strength. A pyramid takes gravity, the force that destroys most large structures, and turns it into its greatest ally. The weight of the stone presses inward and downward, locking blocks together with a force that becomes stability. It resists earthquakes. It rejects erosion. It endures sand, rain, and wind without bending. Its shape is a partnership with the earth. Other monuments fight nature. The pyramid works with it. The second reason is symbolism. Long before mathematics shaped its angles, the pyramid existed in human imagination as a sacred mound, a miniature mountain that touches the divine. Ancient Egyptians believed the first land rose from the waters of chaos as a mound of creation. Mesoamerican cultures saw the pyramid as the place of emergence where gods performed the first acts of life. China used the pyramid as a sacred hill linking the emperor to the heavens. Everywhere the pyramid appeared, the shape meant that the ground could rise into the realm of the gods. The third reason is cosmic alignment. Pyramids are not placed randomly. They are oriented to true north. They track the path of the sun. They embrace the movement of stars that never set. They form patterns on the ground that echo constellations in the sky. They are architecture that participates in astronomy. The pyramid is a bridge between human ritual and the rhythms of the universe. The fourth reason is the afterlife. The interior of a pyramid prepares a soul for eternal existence. Descending passages represent the journey into darkness. Ascending passages represent rebirth. Carefully angled shafts guide the soul toward stars associated with resurrection and immortality. The structure is a spiritual machine designed to ensure the dead continue to rule beyond death. The fifth reason is political power. The pyramid is the ultimate symbol of authority. Its scale declares that the ruler commands the labor of thousands. Its permanence declares that the ruler reigns beyond the horizon of time. Its peak declares that leadership belongs to the one at the top, supported by the many at the base. It organizes society with its geometry. It keeps that organization alive even when kings and nations fall. The sixth reason is mathematics. The pyramid records knowledge in stone. Its angles express proportions that reflect universal principles. Its layout shows that ancient people understood the world well enough to encode science within sacred architecture. The pyramid is a statement of intelligence that refuses to be forgotten. The seventh reason is secrecy. Inside, hidden chambers, blind shafts, and voids, unknown to living eyes, protect the most important treasure, identity. The pyramid is a fortress of memory, an inner realm where the transformation of the soul takes place, unseen yet certain. The eighth reason is communication. A pyramid never stops speaking. It speaks to each generation who encounters it. It speaks to archaeologists who measure its stones. It speaks to pilgrims who feel reverence in its shadow. It speaks to historians who trace the shape across continents. It speaks to anyone who has ever feared being forgotten. It is a message that time cannot silence. All of these reasons converge into a single truth. The pyramid unites survival and meaning. It allows the physical and the spiritual to rise together. It says that humans are more than flesh. It says that the stories we tell ourselves can be carved into reality. It says that the climb toward the sky is not a fantasy, but a mission. Even in modern times, when science has replaced ritual for many, the pyramid still commands awe. We see in it the determination of a species that refuses to accept oblivion. We admire the courage of those who built monuments that would take lifetimes to complete. We respect the precision that required careful observation of the heavens. We feel a connection to them because their pyramid helps us remember that we too want to be remembered. The pyramid is the proof that humans have always aimed beyond the reach of their hands. When we look at it, we do not simply see the past, we see ourselves. It tells us that belief can be stronger than stone. It tells us that architecture can hold the weight of eternity. It tells us that hope carved into shape becomes destiny. And so the pyramid stands, a form that does not break, a message that does not fade, a connection that does not end. We began this journey asking why civilizations kept building history's most enduring form. Now we know the answer. The pyramid is not a mystery. The pyramid is a solution to the hunger for permanence, a solution to the need for identity, a solution to the fear of disappearing, a solution that conquers time. The builders lived, they built, they believed, and they left us a shape that refuses to die.